guys, I'm Jessica and I'm here today to talk to you about tracking your NaNoWriMo progress. Obviously there's a word count tracker on the NaNoWriMo website, which you should definitely use, but I like to go beyond this. The 2 years that I won NaNoWriMo, I actually kept a blog. I journaled about it almost every day. The reason I wanted to journal about it is because I think self-reflection is really important. That's how you grow. Looking back and seeing the mistakes you made, learning from them, seeing what your strengths are. So I think tracking your progress as you write, even outside of NaNoWriMo, it's a good idea to track your feelings about what you're writing. I really enjoyed taking the time to look back at all my posts from the 2 years I won, because I realized things about my writing process and how I write best that I might not have realized because I probably would have forgotten all that. So the first year I did NaNoWriMo, I would include a few things in every blog post. I would include my word count. Sometimes I would screen cap the actual graph from the NaNoWriMo website. Sometimes I would just write out how many words I wrote that day and then my total word count. I would write a little bit also about how I was feeling about it, what struggles I was having, what things I felt like I was succeeding with. I wrote a lot about my frustrations about writing. Sometimes I included other things I did that day, which was interesting to look back on, especially for the days where I wrote a lot. It was interesting to see what else I did that day and what could have contributed to that. Every time I posted, I also tried to include a sentence or a passage from what I wrote that day that I really liked. And this forced me to look back over what I wrote with a positive lens. Like I was looking for the good in what I thought was terrible at the time. The fourth thing I would post is I was doing the 30-day NaNoWriMo tag that you guys might have seen on Tumblr, and I would post that every time I updated my Tumblr. I will include the blank text of that tag in the description below if you're interested in looking at it. But that's a good way to keep yourself motivated to post every day because you have something to write about every single day. That first year was 4 years ago, so we were in another election year, and I wrote some about how the election was like consuming me. And I don't think I wrote very much at all that night when the news, I was up watching the news all night. So it'll be interesting to see if I have a similar experience this year. The second year I won, I did more journal style entries where I reflected on how the writing process was going, my goals for the novel, and my goals as a writer overall. I was thinking a lot more about why I was doing this and what I wanted to come of it, and I think I was a little more serious about it because I had already written a novel, and I had written more in the meantime leading up to NaNoWriMo that year, so I had a more serious mindset about it. But since I did these entries both years, I was able to look back and look for similarities, and I found a few. One is that I always write better if I exercise that day, like run or even like go on a walk. I always do better with my word count. And I think that's because I clear my mind and I'm able to think clearer and I have less anxiety, and it's just a better experience. I also talk a lot about how like next year I want to write a lighthearted novel. Next year I want to try to write something that's funny and like fun to write, and obviously I'm not doing that this year. It is really draining writing so much about emotions and death and the negative aspects of life, but I have never succeeded in writing something that's humorous or lighthearted. I don't think I'm very good at writing that. I'm not a very funny person. I love comedy. I love reading funny books, and I love watching comedies, and I love funny TV shows, and I think without those my life would be a lot more stressful. I think that laughing is so important for lowering your anxiety and just being able to survive the everyday life. But I'm not really good at writing it. I think every book needs some comedic relief, but that's different from writing a book that's supposed to be you know, really funny throughout. So I think over the years I have really narrowed down what I am good at writing, what I should be writing, and I'm not as conflicted as I was back then. And it's good to see that, how far I've come since then. Another thing you can look for, even if you're looking back at your past NaNoWriMo graphs, is the point where you get stuck. Because sometimes it's like 30,000 words, like I talked about in my last video. Sometimes it's 15,000 words. But knowing where you typically get stuck is helpful because you can plan ahead for that in this upcoming NaNoWriMo season. This year I'm going to be tracking my NaNoWriMo process through my YouTube channel. I'm planning on filming every day and then posting when I can, but every day will be accounted for. So we have 9 days left before NaNoWriMo. I worked on my character descriptions yesterday, coming up with their physical descriptions, some backstory for them. I'm trying really hard this year to plan as much as I can about the characters ahead of time, because that's something that I get stuck on, especially the second NaNoWriMo novel I wrote. I used last name for one of my characters' last names the entire novel because I am so bad at coming up with names. It's not even funny. So I do not have character names yet for this novel I'm working on, but that is my goal, to have all of the character names ahead of time so that I don't get stuck on that when I'm writing the novel next month. Last night we watched The Imitation Game on Netflix, and it made me think about NaNoWriMo and a lot of people who are out there trying to write and feeling discouraged. There's a quote in the movie that I love. "Sometimes it is the people no one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine." And I love that quote because sometimes the people who are quiet and do what they're supposed to do and kind of get labeled as pushovers or like too nice, sometimes they're the ones that go on to do the greatest things. That's good to remember when you're sitting there by yourself writing, thinking no one's ever gonna read this. I hope everyone's NaNoWriMo planning is going well. I hope that you're getting excited for next month like I am. Remember to subscribe if you want to follow along with me. I will be back in a few days with another video.